Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. Today, my guest is Alicia Mullen, and I'm excited to have her on the show today because she'll be talking about her precious son, Michael. And Michael was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis when he was born. And so that will be the topic of our discussion today. Alicia, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad to have you today. This is the first time I've actually talked about this condition. So you're going to really educate me and my audience today. But first of all, I want you to tell me about Michael and the day he was born and what we're going to walk through what's happened since then.
Michael was a COVID baby. He was born right in the middle of everything in April 2020. And he came 2 weeks early, was born 10 pounds.
Wow.
So really big, healthy boy. And he was totally fine, totally normal. Came home on time, met all the requirements at the hospital. I noticed some spots on him, just like some brown, looks like birthmarks. The doctor noticed, the spots, and he asked me about them, and I said, well, I thought they were just birthmarks, didn't really think anything about it. And he, looked over Michael and found some more that I didn't notice. And then he just leaves and comes back and says, with a paper saying, hey, I think your child has this. I've only ever seen it one other time.
Wow.
And so he sent us for genetic tests. And then we found out that he did have neurofibromatosis. Well, me and my husband were both tested. And we were both negative. So they determined that it was like a random one in so many 100 million kids are just spontaneously born with it. And it's on your chromosome 17.
Mm-hmm.
But they reassured me, everything is fine. They give you a list of things that could happen. There's no cure. But they did tell me several times, the kids with this usually don't have any issues until they're older, like puberty age. So, we just kind of stuck with that. Michael was still healthy, didn't have any issues. But so I noticed one day, we're kind of over a little bit, that one side's head looked bigger than the other side. One of the things on the list was something called like optic gliomas. It's like a tumor on your optic nerve. But they said it's like super rare to get that, or uncommon. So
And
when we got,
if you don't mind, if you could explain to the audience exactly what neurofibromatosis is. So in my research, I just found that it's not just a single medical disorder. It says it refers to 3 conditions involving the development of tumors that may affect the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves that send signals between the brain and the spinal cord and all other parts of the body. So it's complex, is this diagnosis.
So it can cause tumors anywhere you have nerve endings, inside or outside. I've seen people, covered in them, on the internet.
So the spots were just a skin, and then the tumors are from within, correct?
Right, but you can have them on the outside as well. But the spots just look like regular birthmarks. They're called cafe au lait spots.
Okay.
And they really just look like, maybe this big, this big. They vary in sizes.
Sure.
But if you have more than 6, it's like a cause for concern.
There are many different facets of this disease, or it's really not a disease, it's a disorder, and
Right.
it can have multiple things to occur. So
Right.
while Michael looked normal at the beginning, then you see these freckles, and then now you see his face looks like it's starting to be larger on one side. Now you're at a situation where you're talking to an expert about that.
Right.
So what happens then? And with his eyesight.
So, um, you know, the eye specialist at Charleston said, I agree his head looks a little, misshaped, bigger on one side than the other. He said if there is something, underlying in there, in his head, I can't tell you yes or no.
So
Um,
from there, you went to higher ups in the medical field?
yes. So from there, and I will say there's not any, some places have, NF, neurofibromatosis oncologists who follow you. South Carolina does not have one. But at this time, Michael was fine prior to this, so I never even looked into getting him one of those.
Mhm.
Because they told me, the older you get, start going through puberty, that's when you have an issue. So I
Sure.
really hadn't even thought about, doing any of that. But the doctor at MUSC recommended us go see a neuro-ophthalmologist. Um, and there's not one in South Carolina, and they're pretty uncommon to have a pediatric one. So
Mhm.
I think that the one that we use at Duke is one within like 4 or 5 states.
But what's it been like to care for a child like Michael?
When we got sent to Duke, and they dug a little deeper, and then he got a brain cancer diagnosis, from all that going on with his head and his eyesight. Um, Things just kind of went really downhill really fast.
Mhm.
Um, I think we went up there on like a Friday, um, and they were like, "Hey, he needs to start chemo immediately." We were back up there on a Monday getting a port placed and starting chemo on a 10-month-old. So with all that, going on, we have, him going back and forth to Duke several times a month. The therapies that we have here, um, regular doctor's appointments and all that. I did have to leave my job for a while and, care for him and take him all the places that he needed to go. Um, and my husband was just the only one working, for a long time.
And you had
And
3 other children.
I do. I have 3 other children. You know, they're all school. Well, now they're all school age, but at that time, my youngest son, other than Michael, they're 18 months apart. So he was still a baby.
What do you attribute your strength to in getting through all of that to where you are now?
Um, Nothing other than God. Um, it's been a very, very hard road.
Yeah.
Um, Having to, you know, watch your child go through something like that, and then also, having to keep your other three and your family together.
And
Um,
stable and settled, and also
right.
getting the love and care and time that they need. That was a lot. That was a lot.
Yes, and nothing other than God and prayers and everyone else's prayers for us and our family and for Michael. Um, it's every day is not easy. There's something new all the time, popping up with him. Seems like every time we go somewhere and they, want to do a test or something, they end up finding something else. And you just really don't think about it until you have a child who has issues and who's not healthy. Um, because I did not, even think about that, how lucky people are, how blessed they are, um, to have, good help for your children. Because when you don't have it, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
Um,
So where are you now with he is diagnosed with a brain cancer. Every time you go back, it's something more.
Right.
Tell me where
So
you are now with
he
life.
did he did about I think 16 months of chemotherapy. Um and every 3 months he gets a new scan to check progression, make sure those are still stable. And he's got a lot of the, I won't say a lot. I think I'm pretty sure, about 95% sure that he has every condition that they gave me on that paper,
Wow.
um, plus more that was not on there, and that's not even related to NF at all. Um, but I mean, you don't hear about a 9-month-old, or even now he's 3, that has high blood pressure, and
Oh,
he's got multiple liver conditions, some kidney issues, seizures, you name it, he's got it. Um, and I mean, he went through 16 months of chemo, and things were okay for a little while. Um, Having a child with a port, and then having other children who go to school. Um, Anytime you have a fever, you have to go to the ER. It's always an admission, and he's got another brain tumor on the brainstem. They confirmed it. Um, don't really know much about it other than, they can't treat it with chemo like they did the other ones. It's kind of the opposite situation, where the other two were in your line of vision. You could lose your sight if they tried to remove those. So they opted with chemo there. With this one, it's more in a not so great area. Your brainstem controls a lot of your functions. So they said, surgery would be the best for that.
mhm.
However, he's so little, and it's not developed well yet.
Obviously, do the doctors talk to you about life expectancy? I mean, he's gone through a lot. I mean, I know that's a very hard question, but it
Right,
has to be something that now with him having another tumor or cancer, you have to think about those things. And I know
right,
that's terribly hard.
right. And especially, him being our youngest child, he's a baby, and nobody ever wants to think about that with their baby. But we've asked that in the past, and they say, um, people who have NF most likely live, a normal life, with some hiccups here and there, with tumors that pop up. Um, and I guess really the answer is, depending on what kind of cancer it is, or what it is, to say whether, they live normal, get treatment, be okay kind of thing.
And do you have ways that people reach out to help you?
So we kind of struggle, sometimes, but somehow everything always works out. Um, we have so many people praying for us, and they donate some things sometimes. But with him working by himself for so long, things were hard.
So Michael's 3. He still faces many medical challenges. What is it that you hope to share with others about your journey with Michael and your family? What do you hope they take away by sharing your story with me today?
Just making people aware that there are things like that out there. If you see something on your child, don't just wait around like I did and, think, hey, it's just this, when it could be something much more serious. And, you know, there's not even some of the doctors around here, that we see, going to the local emergency room, they have no idea what it is. When you say neurofibromatosis, a lot of them go look it up, and they'll tell me that they look it up because they don't know it or they're not familiar with it. There's just not enough known about it. It's rare, and that's why I believe that there's not a cure for it, because people just don't know about it.
The takeaway is be attentive when you have a child and you see something that's not right. And you have to be your child's biggest advocate, right?
Yes,
Because just
definitely.
like you said, there are medical professionals that don't know the details of this. So that's tough, I'm sure, to keep going and asking the questions and wanting more because you want more for your child. And again, you say you draw your strength from the Lord. So I'm sure that's part of your story too, is that keep digging deep and asking God for help.
Yes, there's plenty of days, probably just about every day, that I'm just wondering, why. There's plenty of times that I've been in the hospital, waiting on him to be done with something. And I meet someone down in the cafeteria whose child is, just going through something way worse than mine. And so you just never know what somebody else has going on.
That's profound what you just said, because some would look at your situation and go, wow, I couldn't handle that. But look at what you're in, and then you're able to say, this person is dealing with more than I am. And then you think that's when we count the blessings, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are very blessed in a lot of different ways. Michael has the perfect personality, to be dealing with something like this. He's so happy all the time. Even when he was going through chemo treatments, he'd be sick for like a day. And then the next day, just so happy, loves his life, loves going to school, loves going to church, loves, playing outside, just loves life in general.
What a gift to you, right? That you could
Yes,
see that joy and that love of life in him, for him to have be struggling with so many issues. I
doesn't
really,
slow him down, definitely.
it doesn't sound like it at all. Alicia, I want to thank you for being my guest today. As we close, are there any final thoughts that you want to share about Michael, about what he's gone through and what your family has gone through, and the hope that you have for what tomorrow will bring?
Um, you know, of course I'm praying, that somebody somewhere one day will find a cure for that, um, for his disease. And just like every other disease there is, everybody wants a cure for that. I just hope that, he, well, I know he's going to do something great one day. And, everything happens for a reason. I feel like with everything going on and his spirit and everything, he's got to be here for something good. I think that the best information, the most like accurate, comes from the Children's Tumor Foundation. I think it's .org, but if you just Google the Children's Tumor Foundation, that's the most accurate information out there. That's the main NF research. All that comes from that.
Well, I want to thank you for being my guest today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.